What's going on, guys? Bengal here. And yeah, of course, back with another mock draft, but we are all thinking of Damar Hamlin. There's not really much more we can do. It's out of our hands. Just waiting for more information, and hopefully, he pulls through. He got the best medical professionals in the area, so hopefully all is well there. Hearing some encouraging things on Twitter and things like that. But yes, all of our thoughts are with him at this moment, as much as that means. But a very unfortunate situation. Didn't really feel like uploading that night or yesterday, but we are going to be pushing through today with a 2023 mock draft. The order has changed just a little bit, and I think some of the performances of certain draft prospects have changed as well. There will be a couple players that are moving up, a couple players moving down per usual, and a couple players sneaking into the first round. I have already done this. I'm going to be changing up some things from what I've done already. But here we go. Number one, it's not going to change much for me. I do think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the draft. How that changes over time and how perception changes, we will see. But I think Bryce Young, for me right now, is going to be my QB1. I did tweet out, and I said, oh man, CJ Stroud making some plays. Who knows? He could be back in that QB1 conversation. And I think more than for me, it's just for some teams. Some teams are just going to think Bryce Young is too small. And that's not just height, that's also weight, kind of some things we just haven't seen before from an NFL quarterback in terms of, being so light for the position. You worry about durability. Even with a guy like Lamar Jackson, who's above 210 pounds, that guy's faced a little bit of injury here in the past couple of seasons, and there are plenty more examples even more severe than Lamar Jackson. So you wonder about his longevity as a result, but the player's really good. He's an immense playmaker. I think he's worthy of that number one overall selection. And I've put Will Anderson in here a couple times. I'm going to change it this time. I'm going to go Jalen Carter on the basis of it's more difficult to find an interior defensive lineman that can really rush the passer, whereas it's a little bit easier to find an edge that can change the game compared to an interior defensive lineman. I do really, really, really still like Will Anderson Jr. as a player, though. He will be the third overall pick. With this logic, though, it's just... And the Bears, if they get an offer, no trades in this one. I'm going to wait until the Draft Network's mock simulator's back up. But if the Bears can't trade down, that's who I would go with. If a team looks to move up for a quarterback, whether that's the Colts, maybe it's even Seattle trying to jump ahead one spot so nobody else can jump up. Maybe that's Detroit. Maybe that's the Raiders or Carolina. A lot of different options for sure. But in the case of this staying stagnant, Will Anderson 3, Jalen Carter 2, I could easily see them flip-flopping. I could easily see the Texans choosing Carter or Anderson at 1. If they don't like quarterback that much, they think they're going to be bad next year. Well, guess what? It's a really good quarterback class next year. For sure. For sure. Cardinals at 4. I'm going to go Myles Murphy. J.J. Watt retires. They already were a little bit thin on the defensive line. I think Myles Murphy makes even more sense now. And that frees up the Indianapolis Colts to go C.J. Stroud at 5. He really showed off in that bowl game. He showed that he is actually capable of using his legs, being more of a mobile quarterback, extending plays, dealing with pressure. And those are things that really were not on full display. And some of that is to do with the strength of the Ohio State offensive line. And some of that is CJ Stroud's just inability at the time to make those plays under duress and able to extend and improvise out of structure. That just really wasn't his game. He's evolving. I think we talk about a lot with player development that, if this draft prospect's no good. He's not accurate. His mechanics are flawed, depending on the position quarterback, obviously that makes more sense. But these guys can develop. Josh Allen is a great example. I was dead wrong about Josh Allen in terms of what he ended up becoming. But he wasn't a very good prospect coming out of Wyoming. He was extremely inaccurate and was just all over the place, really, as a passer and as a quarterback. Goes into the NFL, year 1, very tough. Rookie year, terrible, really bad player. Year 2, takes a bit of a step up, still not very great. Year 3, he becomes basically an MVP level player. And that sort of thing happens. It's just completely stagnant. And even on the rise, you will see, valleys along with those peaks. And I think we saw a lot of that with Trevor Lawrence, right? One of the best quarterback prospects we've seen over the last decade. This has not been a straight, skyline, but now we're starting to see Trevor Lawrence really become a top level quarterback, maybe not necessarily top 3 or top 5, but in that top 10 range, that's what Trevor Lawrence has been playing like this year, and he continues to get better, and he's still so young. Development is not just purely linear, right? There are spikes, and there are a bunch of different variables that go into development, and sometimes a player can be one thing coming out of college and then it's a decline, or maybe they weren't ready for that jump despite being great at the college level. It's so many different variables, but we are seeing development is my point from CJ Stroud, from what he was even his first couple starts obviously at Ohio State. A little bit rocky, ended up having a really good season, and then this year we're seeing the progression a little bit more, even though there were some rocky points at times. But yeah, Colts, I think you get a franchise difference maker at 5. At number 6, I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez. I have him a lot higher than a lot of other people seem to. 6 is high for a corner, but we've seen CBs go in that range. I mean, even look last year, Sauce Gardner goes at number 4. Jeff Okudah went at number 3, right, to this same team. And Gonzalez is great. Really, really good corner. Fluid hips, but is big. Has great size as well, long arms. He checks the boxes of a modern-day corner, can run, but has that size at length to press, can also just fluidly switch and run, really like Christian Gonzalez. And that's a lot of what cornerback evaluation is. You're seeing how fluid a player is, and obviously consistency is a big factor as well. Feet pretty good. I like Christian Gonzalez a lot. I think he's going to go higher than a lot of people think, or at least Pro Football Focus, I think, has him as like outside of the first round. I just can't get on board with that. At number 7, the Atlanta Falcons. This is a player who I think the Seahawks could even target. The Seahawks are another team that could trade down. Seattle really needs help on the interior of the defensive line, but if Brian Brzee makes it to this spot at 7, I really think the Falcons would be hard-pressed to pass him up. There are a lot of teams that need interior defensive line help. The Raiders are one of those teams. The Falcons are one of those teams. The Seahawks, the Bears. And it's tough to get those interior defensive linemen that can really change the game. I think Brian Brzee is one of them. He would be a solid pick here for the Atlanta Falcons at 7. At number 8, I went back and forth on this. I think there's a chance it's Will Levis. I really do. And Will Levis is in the same boat of an Anthony Richardson, where it is a raw prospect. Richardson has youth on his side. Will Levis is older, but still has a big arm. Mechanically, he's pretty good. It really hasn't put it all together at Kentucky, but we see teams more and more bet on the traits now. Will Levis have traits that will play at the next level, or should it, right? Obviously, situation, so important. Development, really, really important. So Will Levis could end up being really bad. Could also end up being pretty good. So you weigh out the pros and the cons, and I think the Raiders, who have essentially parted ways with Derek Carr, what are they going to do? Does Tom Brady become a Raider? It seems ridiculous to me that so many different fan bases and guys, maybe the Raiders could get him. Maybe the Giants could be in the market for Tom Brady. Maybe X team. Who knows what's going to happen with Tom Brady? He's a 45-year-old quarterback. It is tough to say, and that's certainly not a part of your long-term plans. You still could take a quarterback and bring in the oldest quarterback to ever play. George Blanda, was he older? I don't think so. I mean, it could have been kicker/quarterback. But anyway, I don't think we're going to go Will Levis here. I have opted to go with Tyree Wilson, and that's because their pass rush in Las Vegas is not good. Max Crosby's very good. Overall, they are not great. Wilson is inside-outside flexible. He's a 4-3 defensive end, though, but on clear pass rush downs, you could potentially slide him inside. Has great size, is a good run defender as well. He's a good player, and I think the Raiders could really just approach this as a rebuild in a sense. I don't know what's going on with Derek Carr. It's a weird situation to me. Carolina at number 9. I think this could be the Will Levis spot. There have been links with Tepper of the Panthers and Levis for about a year now or so. And I don't know if that's smoke and mirrors. I don't know what it is, but there is a link there. We're going to follow it for a team that could definitely look to take a quarterback. And Levis has upside. Would I prefer Anthony Richardson? I'm a Richardson fan. I really am. And I think he's another player who we've seen develop over this year. You're going to see his numbers and you go, he's terrible. But when you watch him play, there are so many different things to like. And oh my goodness, not only the Florida offensive line, but their receivers are viciously bad. Ricky Pearsall was someone who is like wide receiver one for them in a way. And you could bring up some different names over the years, Jacob Copeland. Like there are some names, right? But there has not been a lot to work with overall. And Anthony Richardson continues to develop. This is a one-year starter with all the traits in the world. He's somebody to look out for. If he goes into a great system where he can truly thrive, man, he could be a special type of a player. But also, we could see a complete failure and look like the way Malik Willis has looked so far for Tennessee, just not ready. This is someone who really should spend some time on the bench and truly learn the game, as I think we all have a lot to learn. But of course, for an NFL quarterback, you got to know a lot. And time learning the system could definitely be good for someone without a lot of starting experience. At number 10, Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going corner. I'm going to go Cam Smith. I really like Cam Smith. I think he could go high in the draft for the same reasons that J.C. Horn went high in the draft. And yes, easy to make that South Carolina comparison at corner, but they have similar play styles as well. He seems to be a pretty good athlete. For the Eagles, who could upgrade at corner, who knows if James Bradbury is going to be back. You have Darius Slay, who's getting a little bit older, but is still quite good, obviously. Avonte Maddox is a slot guy. Cam Smith could be a potential plug-and-play CB2 right away for Philadelphia if they don't retain the services of James Bradbury, and they might not be able to retain him. We'll see. He continues to play very well. Tennessee at 11. This one is one I've gone back and forth on, but their offensive line needs to get better. Now, do you like Paris Johnson? Do you like Peter Skoronski? It depends. Skoronski could potentially move inside. Paris Johnson could potentially be the number one offensive tackle in this class. Broderick Jones, I like quite a bit as well. A bit of a younger player at the position. We're going to go Paris Johnson to Tennessee. I think there's a decent chance he's the number one tackle off the board because of more prototypical size than Peter Skoronski, but Skoronski's also very, very good. And then for the Texans, I think this could be the first receiver we see off the board. They're just taking best player available, really. And who do they think that is? Could be Peter Skoronski. Could be Michael Mayer, even. Although I probably would doubt that. I'm going to go Quentin Johnson, though. Team up Bryce Young and maybe the best receiver in the draft. I think that's a pretty good result if you're the Houston Texans. And yes, you got a rookie quarterback. Give him some help. Brandon Cooks is good. Nico Collins is fine. But who knows how long Brandon Cooks is going to stick around. Quentin Johnson could be a true X receiver, wide receiver one for you. I like the fit in Houston. Jets at 13. I think this probably should be a tackle. They're just too old there, and I know they've done a good job. Dwayne Brown is not the future. He's 37, 38 years old. He is not the guy you want at left tackle for the future. But Peter Skoronski could be. He's someone that is just very, very good on tape. Think Rashawn Slater, another easy Northwestern tackle comparison. But think someone that doesn't have the longest arms in the world, but knows where to put his hands. And is just very technically sound for the position. I just think he's going to be a good pro. So get over the arm length and just look at how good he is. And I think you're going to be very happy with the player you get in Peter Skoronski. Again, because of the arm length, you talk about maybe moving inside to guard. Probably wouldn't do it on this Jets team. I think he can stick a tackle. We saw Rashawn Slater as a rookie, go in and be a spectacular tackle with short arms for the Chargers. I think it's a pretty good fit. I think he's going to be a good player. Washington at 14. I've been mocking corner to them the entire draft process. And after trading William Jackson, I think it's tough for me to get off a corner. I'm going to go Joey Porter Jr. Long arms, again, big-bodied. A lot of these corners are big-bodied. You talk about Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., Keely Ringo. Clark Phillips is definitely a lot smaller. Emmanuel Forbes even has some height and length to him. So Eli Ricks fits that bill. There are a lot of corners with good size in this class, and we're seeing, a press man group of corners in the draft this year. And for teams that really favor that type of a system, you got your pick. There are a bunch of really good ones. I love Devin Witherspoon as a player as well, and it's nice to see him getting some love. as a first-round potential player at this point. I think he could go in the second, but could sneak into the first as well pretty easily. At number 15, I'm finally going to give the Steelers the tackle that they need so desperately. Broderick Jones out of Georgia could be the first tackle off the board realistically. He's got the youth. He's got the size. He's got the, I want to say, tenacity. Really like Broderick Jones. Again, I think it's a pretty good fit for Pittsburgh. This would help you in the power run with Najee Harris. They've upgraded on the interior. Tackle is still objectively a weak position on that Steelers team. That upgraded corner when they traded for William Jackson, corner could potentially still be on the table. You can see Ringo sticking around on the board for me. As you get to Green Bay, they could potentially take a corner. Wouldn't be on my top list of positions they could take. Defensive line certainly comes up, number one for them, I would say, on that side of the ball. Safety potentially as well. Brian Branch could be a good fit. We've seen the play of Darnell Savage step back a little bit. I think he's still fine, but Adrian Amos, I believe, is a free agent. This could be a safety. However, I'm going to the other side of the ball. Tackle is important. They could potentially take a guard as well. Don't really think that's in play for them in the first round. Receiver, we obviously know about. Jordan Addison feels like he'd be a great fit. But if this is the Packers that I know, they're not going to take what we think they should take. I'm going to go Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. Maybe the best tight end in this draft. Big dude. I think he's about 260 pounds at 6'4", 6'5". It could be even 6'6". He is a big tight end. I think he's 6'5". I think he's 6'5", 260. Really good hands, really good receiver. And for Green Bay, that's going to lose Robert Tonyan. This is a position you need to upgrade, for sure. And the receivers are coming along. Christian Watson's a playmaker. I like Romeo Doubs quite a bit. I don't know that Green Bay is going to invest in a first-round receiver. I think we've seen it not happen enough to the point of where this is what they do. I don't know that they're going to change it. But if Jordan Addison's on the board, I think it could be in play. At number 17, this is going to stop the fall of Keely Ringo. We're going to double up on corners. No. We're going to go Trenton Simpson. Trenton Simpson flies around. He's a versatile player for sure, and that's a position in the, I don't want to say position, but so valuable in the Detroit defense is the guy that can do a bunch of different things. And Trenton Simpson could be that guy. Hybrid safety, linebacker, edge, the overhang role. We've seen it so much in recent years. But Trenton Simpson's really, really good. And yes, he's an off-ball linebacker. It's a position, that position, Detroit needs to upgrade. And Trenton Simpson's really, really good. Their defense is not good. We double up on defense, choose to address quarterback maybe next year, maybe the year after that. Maybe Jared Goff's your guy. But Trenton Simpson here at 17, I think it's just an upgrade. And yes, the defensive line needs to be upgraded as well. Took Aiden Hutchinson very high last year. Josh Pascal could certainly develop, but James Houston has been such a good player as well. Not really sure he's an every down guy, but as far as, maybe pass rush specialists come in and just provide some juice off the edge, he is perfect for that role. However, I still think they could take more of a 2 or 3 down starter up front at some point. It'd be great if they could get Myles Murphy or, go a different direction, take Tyree Wilson. Wilson was available for them in this mock draft. We chose to go a different direction with CB1, in my opinion, to this point. And then at number 18, I'm going to go corner. I've taken this for the Seahawks before. Some fans didn't like it, but you got to understand not only the talent on the team, but the contract situations as well. And Ringo could potentially come in and be a nice CB2 on the other side of Tariq Woolen. I like Trey Brown. I think he's dealt with some injuries this year, right? But you can never have enough good corners. And the size and the speed of Ringo, I think, would make him very enticing to Pete Carroll for that Seattle defense. We've seen what Tariq Woolen can do. And that was a raw cornerback prospect. Ringo is a little bit raw as well, but has the size, has the athleticism. We've seen him play not so well at times this year for Georgia, but he's someone still with a ton of potential, and I think this would be a great fit for the defense, and I think he'd be a really tough player to pass up on at number 18. Jags at 19. I think this is potentially a corner as well. Now, it's fallen apart for them, really, because they had a bunch of good corners a couple of years ago when they had the combination of, okay, we took CJ Henderson top 10. He's gone. Sidney Jones, gone. Didn't play up to that level. And then it's Tyson Campbell, who's been the best corner on that team. It may be the best player on that defense. He's been spectacular. And then, you gave money to Griffin. I still think they could go corner here for sure. And someone that could, as well play the slot in Clark Phillips, I think it's a really good fit. Phillips in the slot, maybe you keep Griffin on the outside, maybe you go a different direction. Tyson Campbell is a bona fide CB1 at this point. He's playing up to that level. Phillips in the slot, potentially outside on some reps as well. I think you got a good player. Really, really good for the Utah Utes. Just a little bit small is the main knock with him. And then the Bucks at 20. Okay, here's what I'll tell you. In my version I did earlier of this, I gave them Bijan Robinson. I did. I think there's a number of different directions the Bucks could go. I think corners on the board. I think running backs on the board. I think guard is on the board. I think receiver is on the board. They could go in a bunch of different directions here. Defensive line, even for sure. You could sell me on that for Tampa. I mean, even quarterback. Who knows if Tom Brady's going to be there? Doesn't seem like he will be. What do you do if you're Tampa Bay? They're in a rough spot. Do you take the developmental Anthony Richardson? Or do you think your roster, despite regressing a little bit, do you think they're still in a win-now position? Their ground game was one of the worst in the league this past season. Still going on actively. Does Bijan Robinson completely change that? I think there's a good chance he does. But with receiver, Godwin's dealt with some injuries. Contract is a interesting situation there. Maybe you don't worry about that too much. Mike Evans, similar situation. And then what outside of that? There isn't a whole lot. Julio Jones, aging, can't rely on him. You cut Jalen Darden, who's more of a return specialist anyway. I think receiver could be more of a need than you might think. Addison's on the board. He'd be tough to pass on. Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe. This is a tough call for me. I've thought about a lot of different things here. I know in the modern day and age, no one likes taking a running back round one because they are replaceable. But if you think about it this way, are they replaceable? Can you get a decent player down the board? Yeah, you could definitely get a decent player. Round 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You could get a decent player. You're not going to get an elite one, probably. You could. You probably will not. But you could get a stud in the first round. And maybe you don't extend that guy contract-wise, right? Maybe it's not worth it at that point because of the longevity. But for 4 or 5 years, you could have a really, really good player. So I don't necessarily think that taking running back first round is awful, depending on who it is. I'd take Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. I really would. Depending on the team, depending on the situation. I just don't even think he's going to last at this point. I'm going to go Bijan Robinson to Tampa. The running game was so bad. Bijan is so good. I'm not going to defend it too much. He's very, very good. Hook him. I'm a Texas Longhorns fan, but the player is unbelievable. And then the Patriots 21. I'm going to go DeJuan Jones. I think he does end up sneaking into the first round. For the same reasons that the Patriots love Trent Brown, they could like DeJuan Jones quite a bit. Tackle is a mess for New England. We're going to go tackle DeJuan Jones. And this is a draft, and I've talked about this before, a lot of teams need tackle desperately. There are not a lot of great tackles to go around. So it's going to be interesting to see what team reaches, what team finds a steal. Because you got guys like Matthew Bergeron and Darnell Wright that could be first-round talents. Wright didn't even allow a sack this past year at Tennessee. I mean, there are things to like. Blake Freeland with these tackles down the board. Kirkland even, could be a good pickup in, the third round or something like that. Maybe even a bit higher or lower, depending, but around that third round. Giants at 22. This is tough because they need cornerback really badly. I think the best corners are probably off the board. I do like Devin Witherspoon. Corner is so important for the Giants, and they just don't have much outside of Adoree Jackson. Jordan Addison's on the board as well. And I know it's going to be very popular to think these guys go way earlier, and it could happen. But from what I've heard, there's a decent chance that some of these receivers slip, further than you expect. And is Jackson Smith and Jigba a lock first rounder with his injury concerns over the past season and maybe lack of top end athleticism? Does Jalen Hyatt, who's more of just a speed freak who played in a great offense, does he end up going in the first round with maybe a limited route tree up to this point? Won the Biletnikoff Award. Does that make him a first rounder? Not necessarily. Josh Downs, does that make him a first rounder? Speed, deep threat? I don't know. Played with a great quarterback. Because there's a scenario where Jordan Addison goes round 1, JSN goes round 1, Jalen Hyatt goes round 1, Josh Downs goes round 1, Rashee Rice goes round 1, Zay Flowers goes round 1. Really good player, by the way. Cedric Tillman could get in. Kayshon Boutte goes round 1. Like, there are a lot of different scenarios here. I don't know what happens with the receivers. We're going to know more as we get closer, but we're a long way out from April. So, receivers at this point, I don't have them flying off the board. Maybe you do. I don't to this point. I am going to go Jordan Addison. So many other positions the Giants could really look to target, but I think if he's on the board, it would be tough not to take Jordan Addison with potential wide receiver 1 shops to him. Hands are not amazing, but the route running is. That'll play. You worry about some drops. You worry about the ability to go up and catch contested passes. You worry about that. But the route running, you don't worry about. Very good in that regard. And then Baltimore, 23. It has to be corner for me. It has to be. They're too weak overall. Who knows if Marcus Peters is going to be back. Devin Witherspoon. And then at 24, man, this is tough. They could use a speed receiver. Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs makes sense to me. Tight end makes sense to me. Darnell Washington, just height, weight, speed freak. Would be really fun in that offense. Could go defense as well. The Chargers are a tough team to draft for. I'll tell you, in my mock I did earlier, I have Darnell Washington. I know if I don't include Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round, I'm going to hear about it because he was so good a year ago. But I don't know that he's a lock to get in. I think he could be a first rounder for sure. I'm not sure he's a lock. So if he's not a lock to go in the top 15, it's not really a lock probably to go in the back end because there are some players we were sure were going to be first round picks that fell out. I like JSN a lot. I think it makes it seem like I don't. I like him a lot. It's just tough to know where these guys fit in right now. I'm going to go Darnell Washington. He's like 6'7", 6'8", can run like the wind. He is a mismatch and would be really fun in that offense. You already have Mike Williams, who you just throw it up to. Now you got another one. You still have Eckler out of the backfield. You still have Keenan Allen, one of the best route runners in the game. I love Josh Palmer. They would just be overloading on offense. And with Justin Herbert, that's what I want to see them do. Maximize that offense, and your defense is continuing to take strides. But Darnell Washington, you're not going to find in the second or third round down the board if you were the Chargers. And maybe he does go second round, but because tight end not one of those more valuable positions like running back. But you're not going to find this combination of height, weight, speed, freak. He's just nuts. Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to go Anton Harrison. He can pass protect. They need that. And I know people are going to want me to spend more time on it. If you're a Bengals fan, you know tackle is not good. Jonah Williams, who knows if he'll even be there long term, but you probably don't want him to be. Anton Harrison at 25. Then the Vikings at 26. Again, I'll tell you what I have written down here. And it's something I'm going to change from. But I had Anthony Richardson, developmental player. I know you have Kirk Cousins. I don't know what his long-term future on the Vikings looks like. But right now, despite their record being what it is, people know I'm not a huge Vikings believer. I try to be real about it. It's my opinion. I mean, there are too many close games. I've said before in videos it's not sustainable. And it's like they've sustained it. They've done it. They're 10-0 in close games. They've sustained it. It's not even necessarily just this season. It's when you play better teams and you get to the playoffs. And what about next year? It's too good of a record in one-score games. It just is. There's too much variability there, and there's too much. The margin of error is so small. And I know they've sustained it over, a little bit more than half a season. It's a tough thing to sustain, or maybe about a full season, right? I don't want to downplay what they're doing because it's been incredibly impressive. But if you've seen the Vikings, man, they got blown out by the Cowboys. They got blown out by the Packers, who have been under 500 a lot of the year. I don't know, man. I'm not convinced that this team is amazing. But you could think you're in that window. They've got some great players. Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith. What an edge duo. I still think they could look towards the future. I like their receiving core, but I think JSN would be in play for them with, Adam Thielen aging. KJ Osborne's good, and then we know about Justin Jefferson, right? But receiver could still be in play. I still always like corner for them, but I've tried to mix it up a bit more of late. I just don't know who's on the board for them that is like a can't-miss player at this point. I think Anthony Richardson does end up going in the first round. I'm going to go receiver, though. I'm going to go JSN. He's a really good player, and you got to have a backup plan for Adam Thielen getting deep into his 30s, right? I know he's not 36 or anything at this point, but he's getting a little bit older. It's time you start to at least think about, bringing in some other talented receivers. JSN in the slot, Justin Jefferson on the outside. That's a fun combo. And then I'll tell you another one here. I have the Cowboys with Jahmyr Gibbs. And my logic with that is they love to go to running back, two-headed beast. Zeke, we know what Zeke is. He pound the rock, pick up the tough yards, right, in a way. Tony Pollard is the spark plug. He's the guy that can catch out of the backfield. He's the guy that can take it to the house. And I don't think Zeke is that. Tony Pollard is a free agent. And if you are at number 27 overall with Jahmyr Gibbs on the board, Zeke getting a bit older, Tony Pollard a free agent, I know they have other needs, and this isn't me going, oh man, dude, I hate the Cowboys. Let me mock them a bad positional value. Jahmyr Gibbs is really, really good. He would be a game changer for the Dallas offense. Let's say you lose Tony Pollard. Real chance somebody pays him this offseason. Are you going to franchise tag him? How long do you think you really have with Zeke playing at a high level? I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs. I think it's a way better pick than you think if you disagree with this. Yes, they could go a different direction. CB2 is a huge need, for sure. Safety is potentially in play, right? They could go a bunch of different positions. I could even see them taking an edge rusher. Tight end even. But, I mean, receiver. But I think running back is in play when you have one like Jahmyr Gibbs sitting on the board at 27. At 28, Broncos. Their offensive line's not good. I'm going maybe the best guard in the draft, Osiris Torrance. Their offensive line needs to get better. Some of the top tackles are off the board, but the best interior offensive linemen remain. This is kind of when you start to see those guys go. At number 29 for Buffalo, safety needs to improve for sure. Micah Hyde dealt with some injuries, and I think we obviously know Jordan Poyer is getting a bit older as well. He's 30 plus at this point. So who knows what you have there. Brian Branch, really, really good player. Could potentially give you an option in nickel defense as well in that slot position. Number 30, Kansas City's tackles have been brutally bad as well. And I worry about that. I've been giving them edge rusher at this point a ton. I think Jared Verse goes higher than where we are in the draft right now. Or I think there's a good chance he does. But I've given Casey edge a lot. We got to acknowledge at least that tackle's really, really bad. I gave them Darnell Wright earlier. I really do like Matthew Bergeron. Cody Moak's quite good. I am going to give them... it's roll the dice here on who you prefer at this point. I'm going to go Matthew Bergeron. Pretty good pass protecting offensive tackle for Syracuse. He's good. He's a good prospect. I think he could be a really good value pick for a team if he does not end up going in the first round. And then the Eagles back on the clock at 31. I will do the 32nd pick as well, like I've been doing for my last several mock drafts, which is the first pick of the second round, if you did not know, because the Dolphins have that first rounder forfeited. But the Eagles at 31, I'm going to give him Jared Verse. Really, really, really good and fun player out of Florida State. Albany transfer, and has some real juice off the edge. Fun player, and I think he goes higher than this. I do. I'm a big Jared Verse fan. But a lot of good edge rushers in this class, so there's a chance we see some of them slide. Jared Verse could be one of them. Isaiah Foskey, Nolan Smith coming off injury, B.J. Ojolari, Andre Carter with the weird military service stuff, Derek Hall, redshirt senior, Felix Anudike-Uzama is quite good. There are a lot of different ways this could play out. Seems to be quite a good draft class, in my opinion, up to this point. And then the Texans' first pick of the second round. Bunch of options here. we're going to go edge, and I'm going to give them Isaiah Foskey. So that is my mock draft, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it, or at least my explanations. No shame in disagreeing with any of these, but you got to remember it's a mock draft. Crazy things happen in the draft, and we are a long way out, but that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.